Welcome, everybody, to the Gate Expectations podcast, where I bring in a weekly guest to talk all things Yu-Gi-Oh! And get to know a little more about each person I talk to. This is the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast that is run by a full-fledged journalist such as myself. This is episode 18. If you haven't checked it out yet, you can check out earlier podcasts with guests like Steven Trifanowski, Jesse Cotton, Team Samurai X1, Doug Zeef, Farfa, and many more. My guest for this week has a YouTube channel with over 63,000 subscribers, over 2,000 Twitch followers, and one of the more popular figures on the West Coast in North America. It's Thomas Cheung, a.k.a. Tombox. Tom, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you coming on. I know you're quite busy because you told me when we scheduled this way back, like last month, that you get a full-time job. You run this channel a whole lot. You recently just got married, if I recall correctly.
That is correct.
Yeah, so congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
And I know you've been really busy, graduating from university, having a full-time job. So it's a tough thing to balance, which I know is what one of the big themes of your channel is just being able to balance out your hobby of Yu-Gi-Oh! With your full-out lifestyle that you have right now. So could you tell me a little bit more about your channel and then how balance relates to that?
So, well, I kind of want to jump back into how everything kind of got started.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to explain it that way.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
MST TV started... Actually, before MST TV, there was like a precursor to the channel because I was more or less a fresh grad at the time. And this is how the whole balance thing kind of comes in later on. Like, I was working for a game company at the time. Luckily enough, the games industry, it's easiest to get in when you know somebody that can actually recommend you to kind of put you to the top of the pile of resumes that they get. So it kind of all started with that. I started working, but wasn't really getting too much. Like, I wasn't really getting to expand on any kind of growth. So eventually I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start doing videos. I know how to do videos. I've seen, like, at the time there was Asian Eyes. There was, I think, Simo kind of just started. Team Samurai X1 wasn't as big as he was today. Team APS was also kind of small. There was just a bunch of, there's a lot of other YouTubers out there that eventually a lot of them made names for themselves, of course. And I'm like, you know what? I can try my hand at this. I know how to video edit and stuff like that. Kind of just was part of my university curriculum. And I kind of started from there. I'm like, I need something to use as a resume booster. And seeing that, like, YouTube is also growing like crazy. When people had like 1 million subscribers, it was like one of the biggest things ever. Now there's like thousands upon thousands of people with like millions of subscribers. So it was kind of the earlier age of YouTube, I would say. That's kind of when I got to get started. So I started as a resume booster. Eventually I got laid off from my work. Project cancellation is pretty common in the games industry. So I focused a little bit more on this stuff, but I also kind of took a side job on the other hand. I did weekly videos at the time. Like, I was a judge at the time. I wasn't like a really, like, there was no events for me. So I was like, I like to talk about the rules. I would like to talk about mechanics. So I'm like, you know what? No one's doing this. I'm going to jump on it. So, and the first topic was like Vanity's emptiness, when everyone was confused how it works and no one really talked about it. No one really kind of went into the details. So I went into the details of it. That's how everything kind of got started. And it was like, I banded together with, I guess, Nishi, which he's back again. He's been back for like a year now. And Oscar, which was my competitive side. So I try to get like all sides of the angles. Just so that's kind of how we got started.
Now, I know that you actually have like a series of people working on MST.TV on YouTube. It's not just you that's doing it. Like you said, you got Nishi, you got Wei, you got Trist, and Kairi is your producer. So how did this all start from just you into like a full-out collaboration of several people like going into MST.TV? So
it started with the initial three, which was Nishi, Oscar, and myself. We had to talk about it. Like, there was a lot to talk about. Like, oh, are we actually going to do this for fun? There's going to be the group talk eventually. If you do it as a group, there's going to be the group talk. Like, who's doing what, who's in charge of things, because you need someone with a direction. And since I was mainly I did like the first couple episodes and I did editing. Like, there were some like infighting at the beginning, and like nothing is as smooth as it sounds. I'm really surprised on the Team APS side because he's got a big group, and working all that stuff out is part of the challenge when you do like a group thing. And so it started with me. I was the main editor because I knew how to edit videos, and Oscar mainly just liked to play. Like he was the key player, I would say. He was the one that was competitive. He was the one that could top nationals at the time. And Nishi was our vendor. So we kind of got like every part of it down. So we would have all the information that we would need to actually provide people with decent information. And you know, to some degree, a lot of us were like, if we share this information, doesn't that put us at like a disadvantage when we want to play? I mean, us being in the competitive setting, you don't want to share everything right away. It just makes your road much harder. But then I'm like, the game evolves so fast anyway. People are going to eventually know. And if we don't do it, someone else will. And that's kind of how the balance came in. And then as for my fiance, Care, who came in, I guess my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, she kind of came in later on in the picture because I met her. We kind of had a long distance thing for a while. And then she came back. And then I don't know. One of the rare occasions where long distance actually worked out. Well, we were in person together, then we were forced to go long distance, and then we came back together, and it was I guess a happy ending to that. She came in. I'm like, I'm always working on these videos. I asked her if she could help out, like provide me with like resources. Like she's not totally like into the game. I guess she was really into the game during like the Klee format, the Klee Necros format. That was when she was like really big into the game. And then when Cleese got nerfed to the ground, Pei doesn't feel great anymore. That's when she kind of like just stepped aside and just dealt with like tournament management and like deals with all the back end stuff. As for why I've known him for a very long time. I've known him when I was in high school actually, and he just goes in on product. He has a library of cards. I would say he has more than some stores in terms of finding stuff. Like when I was digging through his bulk, you would find some of the most unnecessary ghost rares unsleeved in his bulk. I'm talking like ghost rare Black Roses, ghost rare Stardust in his bulk. That's how much bulk he has that we can't go through.
And that's enough to make like a lot of people cringe out there, considering like the value of ghost rares these days.
And these are like first ed ones. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So he's like kind of the guy I would go to kind of collect some cards and like, dude, I need this for a video. And he would be like, he's always up for the challenge. And like at one point he was I was living at home, but we rented the extra suite out. And Y was one that rented it out, which gave me like a huge space to do videos. Because he's like, yeah, just come on down, just do whatever you want. And then there was a moment there. That was like really nice. So that's kind of how we kind of all got together. We just played. We're all in the same area. Don't know how we all ended up meeting each other, but it's just going to locals and knowing people that meeting good friends and people you can trust.
Now, there's not a lot of people that we know of that's out on the West Coast that really is for Yu-Gi-Oh, except for maybe Simo, I think he's in California.
No, he's in Vegas.
He's in Vegas.
He's in Vegas.
So he's fairly close, at least in Nevada is close to the West Coast. Not quite there. As where you're from, Vancouver, and we don't hear a whole lot about the Yu-Gi-Oh end of it out in that area, because we know that there's like a lot of like nationals don't really go out in that area. I think Minneapolis would have been the closest for you to be able to go to, but that got canceled unfortunately this year. So, and it's not really well known for, at least where I'm from, like Ontario, Southern Ontario, to really know about what goes on out in Vancouver on the West Coast. So do you think that was also a factor as well, that there wasn't a whole lot out there for you to start up the YouTube channel that you have now?
It was definitely harder. I think if I went a little bit, down south, maybe to like Seattle, it would have been a lot easier. Or even just going to like the Ontario, Toronto side, it would be a lot easier. Closer to New York, you actually have a YCS on that side of the coast. The reason why the Vancouver side kind of went down is because I don't want to like blame vendors, but they were the ones in control of what Konami got to work with, and the vendors didn't want to work with Konami, so it kind of ended up just losing our only valid regional. So I think back in 2013, that's when we got our last regional. Because store, it's like 7 years ago. That's when we got our last regional. I'm working really, really hard. Part of the reason why I'm working so hard as a judge is because I want to get the regional back in our area, and hopefully, if we can show that we can, get good progress, hopefully get YCS eventually. That's my hope. But I've been fortunate enough to actually get the judging gig going, to more than most people on this West Coast for sure. And the reason why we don't have regionals is because the store that actually was OTS certified, that had the judges, had the credentials, they didn't want it. Like they had a management change, and they're like, we're not touching Yu-Gi-Oh. And that was a big slam on the community on this side. And that's when I'm like, you know what? We got to do something to change it. We got to pick this up. And I'm like, you know what? I can judge. I've been like mainly a local judge for the most part. Didn't do any sort of tier 3 event at the time. But then I think most of it changed after 2018 when I went to like about three nationals, like WCQs, and there I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take the RC2 test. And I'm like, you know, I'm gonna work on the judging thing a bit more, just so that we can actually get more events. I'm really trying to like, you know, hold the pole up so that we don't all crumble down over here, because it's really hard when there isn't really a point of contact for Konami, you know. And I'm really trying to get that regional back in. We got to start with the OTS store tournaments, work our way up, and that's where we are here. That's why we don't see very much of the West Coast. But in terms of like West Coast players, most of us would have to travel down to Seattle or Portland to get any kind of like sanction events.
And how far would that be for you to have to travel to go out to those events?
For Seattle, it's about like 2.5 to 3 hours by driving. It's not too bad for me because I'm so close to the border anyway. But like for the people that are like on the other side of BC, they're like they take forever. Like they would take like, I don't know, 7-8 hours just to drive. Portland's much longer. Portland's like an additional another 2 hours more to go down, and like it gets kind of expensive once you have travel a cost to accommodate for it. And this is not even like traveling for like a YCS or anything. We're traveling just for a regional, and that's how committed the players are when they go down, which is why a lot of them do see a lot of results whenever they go down. They hit the top 8 pretty frequently. Which is why I'm like, oh, they come down, they take the spots. But when we did have regionals like pre-2013, people down from Portland, people down from Seattle, they would be the ones coming up to take some of the regional spots as well. So it's like the people on the West Coast, whether you're from Canada or the US, they know each other.
I figure that's a big privilege that I have here, at least anyway, living in Ontario, is that I have several regionals around me that I can go to. Like I have Toronto, I have Ottawa, for example, and then if I really want to, I can go down to Niagara Falls for it. As opposed to you, I don't really know like what locations you could really go to at that point for Vancouver. Like even Halifax and Manitoba, like they have their own like little regions as well, like around like Winnipeg and Dartmouth, and then I don't even know like what even goes on at the West Coast there. So I was really curious to know like how your like premier events, like tier 2, tier 3 events, would be just living in Vancouver, even though that's one of the most major cities that exist in Canada.
But there is one. We did actually have a regional recently in BC. However, it was not accessible to most people.
Oh
yes, we had one that was held in, I think, King George. King George is central BC, which is really high up north. Yeah. King George, BC had a regional, except that the population there is like a small percentage of what we have down in the lower mainland. And they had a regional. I hosted my own tournament on the same day. It didn't matter because people can't go up there. There was a problem with transportation. People to go there, you either fly up there because it was held during the winter time, and there's no way anyone's driving there. Like it's icy. You're talking about like I guess in Celsius, like -30. Like the roads are all iced up. No one can drive up there. So I went to Google and check like how long does it actually take to go up there. So on good weather, it takes about 9 hours to drive up. That's how far it is. It's like literally you're driving between like multiple states to get up there. Because Canada, we're you know where we are. We're all like we've got huge provinces, but most of it's empty.
Yeah. Which is why we're like population wise is why like US completely dominates in population, because we have so many wide open spaces and like especially in the Maritimes and British Columbia. There's a lot of mountain and like open fields and whatnot. There's
a couple of major cities and that's it, right? And so going up there was like not possible. Like I debated whether I wanted to go up there, but according to Google, it was like, if you want to drive there up safely, it's going to take you 14 hours to drive up there.
Oh god!
And I'm like, that ain't happening. And then we checked the regional, how many people actually attended that regional. So there's a minimum whenever we're hosting like a regional. Like, different areas have a different minimum. BC's minimum is still ridiculously high for what it is, considering our population. But we need, like, your venue must host a minimum of 200 players. That was the minimum. Whereas Alberta only needs 100, and a lot of the ones in between are like between 50 to 100. So BC, on the other hand, needs 200. And that makes it very difficult because, well, I guess you're in Ontario. You understand, like, Toronto and Vancouver, two of the most expensive places to live.
Yes.
And renting a space is going to cost a lot. It is not cheap. And because of that, I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to, like, I was willing to, you know, just out of pocket the expense. I'm like, screw it. I'm willing to out of pocket this. We can get this in. And well, eventually, we found venues. We found places that are willing to host us. We thought we just had to work out all that stuff just to try to make a Yu-Gi-Oh scene here in BC. But until then, we hosted like our own little, I had like MSD private events, like MOSs and whatnot. And the open series that I hosted myself, I managed to hit around 80 to 90 players per event, which was more than the regional that was held up there.
Yeah, which is
the regional
really,
had 50,
like, unheard of.
And I was like, really, you guys only hit 50? And then I've hit like 90. I'm like, I'm sure I can hit the better number here. But it's just what it is. Like, I'm guessing that they don't know the geography of Canada, so when they pass them the regional rather than give it to our store, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, because it's really similar to how it is in Ontario right now. We used to have so many regionals in Toronto, and then lately it's been kind of spacing out just like to the outskirts of Toronto where it'd be a little bit more cheaper rather than just downtown. And it's been going around like surrounding cities as well around that. So I can understand like the costs of like doing in Vancouver because it is really expensive there. It's kind of like how you barely see any events that happen in the state of New York because it's also really expensive to do events like that. Yeah. So, people would think, Vancouver's a major city. Like, why don't they have regionals? And that's like maybe an initial person's thought, but they don't realize how expensive it is to really be there in Vancouver. And we have a living example like that in Toronto. So I guess for you, it's got to be really difficult to be able to try to build that kind of rapport with all the Yu-Gi-Oh players to really get Konami to notice you and get like, hey, we got a meta up here. Like, we would like to have events around.
Yeah, so that has been like my side project. Like, whether it be like MST TV related or not, like this is Thomas related. I'm trying my hardest to actually push it out. Whether or not it relates to the channel, I don't really care at that point. I just want there to be a Yu-Gi-Oh scene in this area, which is why I really like the fact that I get like a little bit of respect for that because I've been trying so hard to get it. I've been trying for like the last 3 years or so, especially because it was after when I got my RC2, which was when I got my first judging gig, like my very first premiere event in Niagara Falls, which was neat. I was already a Yu-Gi tuber by that time, and Konami was pretty impressed with, I guess, the professionalism. And there's actually a lot to talk about in terms of judging. Like, I haven't really talked about that. I really want to talk about it at some point, but like just from what I hear is just that not all judges are of the same caliber. There are some that are much better than others. And they're always trying to look for the ones of the cream of the crop, the ones that are professional, the ones that can get the job done, the ones that aren't afraid to, be confrontational sometimes, because conflict does happen. You're the authoritative figure. You're going to issue a ruling. Someone's not going to disagree with you. Therefore, you're always in the middle of confrontation all the time. But there's more to talk about. Yeah,
you absolutely are, and you're going to be contested a lot. And I've been judging for God knows, like 14 years, I believe now. And I've definitely had my fair share of like confrontations and people definitely disagreeing with me and whatnot. I've had judged several events myself as well, so it's definitely something that you have to be able to handle as being a judge. And and you see like a lot of the judges that do get picked for it, a lot of it like really don't play the game a whole lot anymore. They're really on like one major side. If it's like judging or playing, they're going to pick the judges that are most of the time that are more willing to judge than they are to play. It's hard to kind of play like a balance between the middle. Like regionals, it might be okay, but for bigger events, it might be a little bit more picky when you get a lot more applications.
Especially like one of the like the big incentive is like the judge gifts. Like that's like a big incentive to a lot of the people that are like, oh, do I want to play or do I want to judge? Well, there's the judge gift right now. Of course, judges are now they're paid now. They're paid hourly based off of, which is actually a really good change. Consider that it covers for a lot of the expenses, and then the judge gifts themselves. They more often than not, most of the judges just sell off everything that they got, like completely sealed, like their packs and everything. They're basically just boxes and everything, and they just completely flip it. And like the mats are exclusive to the judges as well, so that's another thing that they typically flip. But like that's some of the incentives. Like some people just go for those incentives, but to me, I think they are what they are named for. Like they're gifts, to help ease some of the cost. And I appreciate having that. But then now that it's already paid, so it's like kind of double stacked in some sense.
Yeah, it's like before, like when they gave out product, it could be a bit of a gamble, but depending on if you wanted to sell your product or if you wanted to just maybe open up and then maybe sell it from there or keep it for yourself. And then nowadays, you're getting paid, even though it is taxed, by the way, for people who don't know.
Yeah,
that stuff is taxed now, which is you have to keep aware of. But it's more of like a investment, I guess, for judges to be able to. They know they can come out with at least some monetary compensation for being able to judge. And like there's like two different sides of the argument of whether people like the prizes more or people like having the money. But then there's a lot of more judge gifts now that are coming out, which are really cool, that kind of help offset that.
It's really good incentives, I would say, when it comes to that, because like I know people want to play. I know a lot of judges, they're really, really good players. Like from what I've seen, especially when you go into the judge tournaments, like that they have at the lobby of the hotel.
Yes.
You know how strong some of these players actually are, and they're choosing to forego their chance to actually compete just so that they can, manage the event, make sure that the event runs smoothly. It's something that's kind of underappreciated. And but having these incentives just make sure that there are more people that are willing to judge these events, which is actually a good thing. It allows these events to happen. And they always want the best judges. You don't want you don't want some random schmo that goes in and be like he did his RC1, he did his PC1, and then they just jump in, but then he really knows very little. And like in terms of like you have to know them not only as like knowing rulings is a good thing, but knowing how to deal with like the policy is just as important, because they come up much more than just ruling issues.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. And have you ever had that feeling where when you judge an event and you look at the field and you say, like, if I would have played, like, I think I could have had a good chance of topping this event or anything like that, just going off the skill of these judges before, because I've played several judges before and I've been beaten by them. Inversely, I've beaten several judges as well. But have you ever had that thought that if you played the event, you'd have a good chance of topping the event?
I think the one that my best bet at the time probably would have been like Niagara Falls 2000. The one that I judged for the first time. That was the one where I was like super comfortable with the format already. Like that one was like even at the WCQ, I didn't do that bad either. And that was the one time I was like, oh man, I could have played, but you know what? The thing is, I never would have went there if it wasn't for like a lot of the a lot of the fees that they help cover. Like they do compensate a little bit for the flight and everything. And if it wasn't for all the little things, because then rather than like actually getting paid to go there and get paid on the hour to work there, I would be mainly just expending my own expenses to get there. So it basically would have been like I wouldn't even be there if I was playing, because it was just not a possibility. I couldn't just take the time off just to fly to Toronto and then take like I don't know, like another hour to go to Niagara Falls. Like that was just not possible for me. So in other words, I just have to accept the fact that I'm there to do the job and I'm going to do it well. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah, it might be a little bit tricky for you considering like the geographical location.
Yeah,
that
like
is that there
are people that fly in, and when people fly in, they have to consider like, hey, they're there to do a job, and like playing is basically out of the option, or else you just wouldn't even be there.
And like a lot of players that are able to fly in typically have like some kind of sponsorship that do it. And I'm going to guess that on your end that you don't have any sponsor at this moment in time.
I don't have any major sponsors. No, I could probably ask for it, but I'm just too busy to actually bother with it. I want to work on so many things right now, and I'm not getting any of those chances.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that a little more, because I don't think we really got like a full answer yet, because we kind of backtracked so
Oh
far,
yeah,
just
yeah.
to kind of dip into it now. So we talked about how your channel's all about really maintaining balance with your life, since you have a full-time job, you have a new wife now on you, and you have a collaboration with several other people that do MST TV. So how do you work out that balance with yourself?
So in terms of like day to day, the work, it's kind of like it's game company. I'm now like a senior UI artist, more like a senior technical UI artist, because I do a lot of the implementation. I go between code all the time. One game that I worked on is actually, if you're using like a Windows computer, you can already play the game that I worked on. Microsoft Solitaire Collection that's built into your Windows machine. I'm credited in there.
Oh, really?
I am not kidding. I'm credited in there. You can go look it up if you want to.
I'm looking it up right now as you keep talking. So keep going. I'm going to look for it.
Yeah, go look into the credits page and you'll find me there. That's one game that eventually led to my senior position. I was working on that for some time now. So that's basically well, I don't work on that project anymore personally. I moved on to the next project, and basically that's my 9. It was like basically my 9:30 to like 6:30, 6:37, and that's my hours. Gaming hours. You work till you get your hours in. So then there's that. So then when I go home, that's when I eat. Then I actually start doing the YouTube stuff, and I have like a notebook that I use to plan out my whole schedule. Like, of course, there's in Yu-Gi-Oh, there's like, random announcements that come up. Like, do I want to tackle it, or does Nishi want to tackle it? Because like we're the two presenters right now, and we try to kind of split it apart. And we also have to talk about, like, every now and then we get an update on like YouTube algorithms and stuff like that, and we have a meeting about that. Like, hey, how do we want to tackle it? Do you want to do like 5 videos a week? We want to change up our schedule depending on like the time of the year. During the summer, people are out of school, there's no school going on for like a lot of the high schoolers. Then we're like, you know what, we can actually pump more content. They can get daily content if they want to, and then we work a bit harder for those ones. But then when there is school, maybe we're like, maybe we'll have a little hump day that we don't do anything. Let us like breathe a little, because they're still working day to day. Nishi also works full-time as well. So both of like all of us, we're all like fully employed by some employer, and so we're trying to like, we all do this stuff after hours. And sometimes whenever there's like a random announcement, like, that's why I can't do like bandless reactions as frequently. Yeah, because like bandless reactions, they usually get announced during 10 o'clock or noon. Those are the two common times that they get announced. Sometimes one. There was one time I keep track of all of this. I try to make a little pattern chart. So I'm like, it's about this time. We can hold back on content and see if we can just throw a reaction out there. Because like a lot of the time about doing this stuff is like, aside from just making content, you have to also understand the platform that you're putting it into. If you don't understand the platform, you will never grow. You'll just do everything wrong. And like, why does my video not get the exposure that the other guy's video did? It's because they know how to play the algorithm, or they got lucky when they played the algorithm. So that's like one big thing that people don't talk to. They think like, just make a video and upload it and share it. But there's more behind that. So that's kind of like the YouTube side. So our day-to-day was like day job, YouTube, and whatever. Try to give my weekend to... I'm trying to give my weekend to my wife as much as possible, or like most of my at least 1 or 2 hours within the after work, before I start doing this editing and video recording. I try to dedicate that to socializing, like wife, friends, and stuff like that, because it's really hard to balance it once you have everything's consuming time. And that kind of goes without saying, like when it comes to like, I want to work on new merch. I haven't put out new merch in a very long time because I traded that time away. So it's about like, what are you willing to, sacrifice for? And that's what I have. Like there is some point where I'm like, should I still continue working for the company that I'm working for? And it's like that always comes into like conversation every now and then. Like, how do I dedicate myself to full time? Because technically YouTube is not full time for me. Most people, once they hit 30K, they go full time. They find all the avenues of revenue for them, and they're like, I'm gonna maximize on each of these parts, and they just grind at it. I haven't found myself doing that yet.
Have you decided to like? So you, first of all, you graduated from Simon Fraser University, and
Yeah.
you studied interactive arts and technology, interactive design, from what I saw.
Yeah.
And again, to confirm back to what you said, yes, I do see your name in the credits of the Microsoft Solitaire collection.
Yep.
The user interface artist, I see you at the very bottom of that list. So that's really cool to see that that something that you helped create is out there on everyone's.
Yeah, it's on
at
a
least
billion
Windows computer.
computers, right?
Yeah, and I used to play a ton of Free Cell back in the day. So man, I might just have to hop on just for the heck of it, just to see how your work is.
Yeah, the card back vector. I redesigned it for that one. And actually, every single screen that you touch, I built 95% of that game.
Oh, very nice. Oh, well, I'm just gonna have to give you feedback later on sometime whenever I decide to sit down and play it.
It's not just the one on your computer. It's all the one on the mobile as well. It is one of the most adaptive pieces of UI I've ever worked with. It's such it looks so simple, but when you consider when showing it to I guess someone in the field, once you tell them that you can resize that to anything, that's when they're like, what did you do to actually accomplish this? It's insane the amount you know how games sometimes don't work on certain resolutions. When a game works on every resolution, that is some kind of wizarding magic that even I barely comprehend now.
Yeah, because a really big thing now that I find in games is just quality of life updates and just upgrades. And is that something that you would be kind of a part of applying a user interface?
I apply the user interface, yes. In terms of design discussions, let them figure it out, because I wasn't really a part of that. I was just I was the guy that implemented, told them what is possible, what isn't. These are all the conflicting areas when you want all of these things together. The guy that break things apart. That's kind of how I look at rulings, really. I just break it apart, and I reverse engineer things. They want something to work a certain way, I'll just find a reverse engineered operation to actually get it done, and I always get it done. That was the key thing. That's the creative thinking that comes in my brain.
Well, that's really good, because considering that you graduate from a pretty good university in itself, it's quite prestige out there, at least out in the West Coast for it. And you seem, have you applied anything that when you graduated university out now into into Yu-Gi-Oh, or at least MST.TV, kind of how I graduated as a journalist, and then I started doing a podcast now for Yu-Gi-Oh and applying all of my journalism skills into this podcast. And how about you, for example?
Yes, I definitely did use this skill. This is a rare chance. You know how they say when you graduate from university, you're not going to use a lot of these skills. Well, yeah, I'm I'm going to make the best of it. We paid for this expensive experience, and so yeah, I did take a lot of it. A lot of it was more the technical skills I kind of got of it. Unlike a applied skill college or anything like that, where they go directly into the skills. In university, you spend more of your time learning how to do certain things. You learn the method of finding things, which is I think more beneficial than actually knowing how to do something, because you can find out how to do it eventually. And what I learned was video editing, and learn a lot of the different kinds of software that is available out there, and learn a lot of different editing techniques, just concepts, learning all these concepts, how to properly do it. Like from a basic thing, how to do a proper green screen for something like that. It seems very basic. How the computer interprets data, visual data, and how you can use that to manipulate certain things. And then the concepts of storytelling, how to pace your videos so that people will watch all of it. And you can see a lot of these concepts being applied to some of the biggest YouTubers out there. They know what is, and then the willingness to take feedback. A lot of people kind of live in their own zone. For some reason, they develop this ego, but then they're not humbled enough to learn from their mistakes, and they kind of repeat that path over and over again. And eventually, that's kind of what stunts growth. So I learned a lot about design. I actually have two majors. I actually graduated two majors. I have interactive arts and technology in the media art sense, and I also graduate design. Design let me kind of grasp all these concepts, and the media art side let me apply the skill. And it's the kind of the marriage of the best of both worlds for me, which allowed me to be very technical and kind of break things down. The whole reverse engineering thing kind of comes from there. And so from there, these are the concepts that I use and apply to the channel all the time.
Mhm. I can relate to you directly on that one because I also majored in philosophy as well when I did journalism, which
Mhm.
again, to a lot of people is like one of those like baloney, baloney no job majors. But I do apply a lot of philosophy into myself with my journalism. For example, like when it comes to like logic and reasoning, which is one of my favorite things about philosophy, is when people talk and talk. It's my job for me to kind of like dissect what people say. Is like, does this premise match up with this premise? And then if not, kind of question them further and kind of press on it. And that's kind of how I apply philosophy with journalism, is just being able to dig deeper and ask like the bigger questions, and even find
Mhm.
more about what people want to say. So that's kind of what similar to what you do as well. So it's nice to see that you can use some of those like university skills that you apply that people think is just all theory and whatnot and has no practical application, but you can actually use it in a practical application with
Yes.
MST TV, such as your channel, and it's been doing quite well so far. So I'm glad to see you have a good, practical, like tangible form of success with your university degree.
Yes. I kind of sometimes I wonder what would happen if I actually just took this YouTube thing full time.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder about it because I'm like, there are certain avenues I did dabble in terms of like different revenue avenues I could come in. I'm like, I could work on these a bit more. And if I did have like, if I take away the full-time job, like giving myself back 40 hours a week, what can I do with those 40 hours? Like I am putting myself at, if I was to be competitive in this whole YouTube scene, like I am putting myself at a slight disadvantage at times because I'm not dedicated 100% to it. I can't really react as fast as a lot of the other tubers. That's their thing. So you have to, when it comes to like accepting that, then you have to develop different kinds of content. You know how we talked about, say, like fanless reactions. Those are
Mm-hmm.
really, really popular, and a lot of people would like to kind of. It's like one of the most interactive content you have out there, but because I don't have that luxury, I have to come up with something else. And that's where the ban list analysis and the damage report stuff came out, where I'm like, why don't I actually just break it down? What did these guys actually lose? I know people want to come up with like a 10-minute video so they put AdSense in there, but then I always come up with these 20, 25, maybe 30-minute videos breaking down all the decks that got hit, in which way they got hit. And this is again the reverse engineer, but this time rather than reverse engineering, right? We already have the final product. Now we're pulling the things out because of the ban list, and now we're looking at, does this still play? And then we're delivering that information because it does take a lot of time. It takes like hours of research, and that's my advantage of not putting out content immediately towards the ban list subject. I mean, everyone can like just go to the website and find out the ban list themselves, but like the general reaction is what people find entertaining. People want to share that moment with everyone, and that's the advantage of doing the ban list reaction. But then after that, what comes after? It's the analysis. They want to know how deep that rabbit hole goes, kind of deal. So that's it's kind of one of the like taking advantage. Like if you're given lemons, you may make lemonade kind of situation.
There's a really good journalism parallel that goes with this, and it's that when a story breaks, for example, people want to be like the first to bring it out. It's like you see it like YouTube comments, like first. You see that all the time. But when you give a little bit more time and a little bit more thought process into it, you can be second or third, but you can also divulge even more information than what the first comment gives you. And that seems like what you're doing for at least your MST TV. You know that you can't win in the game of speed, but you can definitely win in the content of quality because you've given yourself like a chance to be able to analyze and kind of walk through everything before you put your content out there, so it doesn't seem quite as raw. It's more refined, and that's what your product seems to be.
Yep, that is exactly what it is. And that's just like I know a lot of people are trying to start out like YouTubing, like not just YouTubing, but just YouTubing, and not everything is going to work out smoothly. That's just how it is. There's going to be a lot of compromises that you're going to have to make until the point where you hit that tipping point where you don't need to compromise anymore. Then you can finally input your vision full on for everyone. But until then, it's the grind. Before that whole point, actually, before you even reach that point, you have to do the grind. You have to test your own grit, basically, to see if you're willing to actually put in the work without, getting everything back, not what you expect all the time. And sometimes it's for better, sometimes it's for worse. But then willing to accept every single pitfall and keep going is kind of where it is, or else there's no point continuing.
Yeah, it's really tough nowadays for anybody to start getting into YouTube nowadays, just because you already have like some of the cream of the crop that's already up there as well, and it gets really difficult to get noticed because so many people try to do it and so many people fail on it. You know, some people don't like commit or anything like that. It's tough, and I know that some of the YouTubers out there right now, they treat this as their full-time career.
Yeah.
In some sense, like not for you, but but with the time that you've been able to put into it, you guys have a pretty successful channel so far. And I've definitely watched some of your videos before. Like your Lunalight video was the one that I watched a whole lot because I was using that to prep myself for an OTS championship. So thanks for teaching me how to play Lunalights, by the way. but that's the thing though. It's just getting able to start and, you know, having to compromise yourself. It's tough. Like as for me, example, sometimes it can be really tricky just to get a guest every week and having to plan out everything because everybody's so busy. Not everything can align the way you want to, and it can get tricky in a while. Like, and again, like not trying to bash you or anything, but it took several weeks for us to finally get something.
It is hard because you're talking with two separate parties. You have your schedule, I have my schedule. I was at the time I was bombarded with not just like giveaways and stuff like that, but I had like a lot of the stuff that were basically NDA. When like it's just like you guys know that I have like occasionally sponsored content from Konami every now and then, and those are usually under NDA until they are released. So during those times, like I have to work a little bit harder because I can't release the content, so I'm basically doing content ahead of time, which doesn't really work out to my schedule. Usually it's like a surprise, here's surprise bomb, go ahead and deal with it. So it's harder, and then I have to make sure that I have enough time for like all the other aspects. Like, I don't want all the other aspects to fall apart. I'm running a pretty tight balance here. If one side falls apart, I don't know, I do feel it emotionally, or like I feel like I'm a failure to some degree. And whenever that, like, I try not to let that get to me, because like once I feel the failure, it's like you're only a little bit off from feeling burnt out, and that feeling of burnt out it's hard to come back from.
It really is. Just quick example again for me, because I'm a university dropout. Actually, I dropped out twice in the matter of 4 years, and it took me about 6 years to decide to go back to university and do a whole nother 4 years of it. Like I started at 27, graduated at 31. I'm going to be 33 in a month now. And it was very tough to really climb back out of that. And you really have to have like the mental fortitude and the motivation to really put yourself back into it. So I can understand when you're going through having to like fight yourself down from like trying to remotivate yourself when you're on your low.
Yeah, that's like, it's a really big part of it. I don't think a lot of people see that, because I have actually been burnt out twice. Yes. Once when I was freshly graduated out of university, I actually took a while to actually get my first job in the industry that I wanted to. I worked for Amazon for a little bit as like a warehouse guy for a little bit, and then the stories are mostly true. I would say the work stuff, man, it was stressful working in that warehouse. And like, I started off somewhere. Everyone kind of starts off somewhere. You might get lucky and start off with where you wanted to be right away, but eventually I got out of the warehouse, and then I got myself a desk job working as my first junior UI artist position, where funny enough, I automated my whole position within 3 months. I just like, I know a lot of Photoshop tricks that just makes my life so much easier, and that's why the quality bar, like, I don't have time to edit like that amount, so I just make templates and I make a bunch of actions and I write a bunch of scripts to automate a lot of the unnecessary editing that's super repetitive. That's the tip, guys. That's the big tip. Learn how to automate. You'll be able to pump so many more videos once you automate a lot of it. And like a lot of crazy effects, I built my whole library of editing effects so that I don't have to manually implement it every time. Like all the little bits save time within my crazy balance, or else it just falls apart. There's no way. Like, how am I supposed to improve my video quality if I'm doing the same thing over and over again if I don't have enough time to improve? So rather than improving on one video, I would dedicate my time to improve a skill I probably am trying to develop and try to template that and then reuse it. So that now every video moving forward can use these various effects or these things that make visuals look better, and try to accumulate like a library of stuff, and just keep that library organized. If you don't organize it, it's no difference from redoing over and over again. But like that's kind of the stuff that I do to maintain this balance of improvement while trying to just maintain the same schedule.
Do you find yourself to be like constantly busy throughout like a daily like a week? We'll say like throughout the week. Like, do you find yourself having a lot of spare time or very little?
I find myself to have very little spare time, to be honest. It's hard. I want to finish my merch. I do have 2 pieces of merch that are completely finished, ready to be like sent out. I don't have time to do. But the thing is, once you have like merch done, like the physical product can be ready, but then the promotion is just as important. Like I underestimated the marketing aspect of it for the longest time, which is why like some products they sell out within seconds, whereas some products they sell out maybe within like a week. Within those ones, I try to get an understanding of like what happened, and it's the marketing, the hype, the drop that comes with it. That's the stuff that I haven't been able to plan out, so I haven't been able to release my merch for some time now. One has been ready for like a year. Luckily, I'm trying to do things that are a bit more timeless these days, rather than like before when I made mats that were like of specific archetypes and whatnot. Now I'm trying to go a bit more timeless, because it seems like the timeless one are the ones that people really, really want over time. Like my very first mat that I did with Imperium, the one that was just a bunch of zones. Like when Lynx came in, I just did a zone mat, and I see that mat everywhere. It is the one that I still see to this day. I see it on eBay every now and then. Someone's actually selling it, and then it's sold. And I'm like, wow, people, that's the one that people want. I'm like, why am I making all these? Like, I get that there's some hype behind like some iconic monster. Like if there's a monster like Masterpiece, for instance, that thing is beautiful. That card is beautiful. It's like it's banned and it's still worth $20. Like we know, like beautiful cards are like eventually gonna be timeless. Like the Ghost Girls series, they're always gonna be timeless because they're such a pivotal part of the game now. And so when we look at these iconic monsters, then those are the ones that I probably want to deviate towards making product for, rather than I don't really have an example. Like rather than making one for say like Phantom Knights or stuff like that, it's just not the same. Like you only target a specific fan base. Where you target something a bit more generic, everyone kind of want to get their hands on it.
Yeah, because like for example, like all the hand traps, those the seasonal go like hand traps, they appeal to everybody because everyone in some way, shape, or form has likely run that kind of card, and the artwork is also appreciated as well. I mean, my girlfriend had a very small stint in playing Yu-Gi-Oh for a short time, and she loved like playing the hand traps, not because of just how effective they were at the time, but also the artwork of it as well, like, because it's so like visually appealing. And again, that can also apply to I guess Dark Magician Girl in another sense as well. So that's definitely like a big factor in going to design products, for example.
Yeah,
because I hold right now I hold like an Apprentice Illusion Magician field center that's like from a judging an OTS championship that I got like sealed. It's roughly around like $175, and for a field center. But again, Apprentice Illusion Magician is kind of like a variant of Dark Magician Girl, which is so widely popular, which again would appeal to like a lot of masses. So there's a lot of merit in what you're saying for, designing something that has appeal to like the general masses as opposed to like one niche community.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the things I like to kind of focus on. I know there's like a lot of hype for things. I know like new product, there's lots of hype behind it, but you can't really just bank on hype all the time. Like that's kind of like the process that I like to think about a bit more often. This is some of like the serious behind the scenes things I really get to talk about. So I'm glad I'm getting a chance to kind of bring that forward.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why I'm here. This is your outlet to talk. So I mean, go ahead if you want to go on about whatever. I mean, that's why I brought you on.
So yeah, that's actually, I think that's really all there is about like the time and the planning on my day-to-day life. It's just that during the weekday it's hard because I also like making food. In a relationship, one person eventually is the one that takes care of the kitchen, and that's going to be me. So I have that on top. I like
Yeah,
making food.
same as myself.
I like making food.
Same as myself. Yeah, because I know that you had a separate channel as well that did focus around food, whether it would be you going out and eating food, or it'd be you making food at home as well.
Yes.
Like I know you haven't put up a couple.
I haven't put up videos
like,
on
in a
that
couple
channel
years.
for a very long time because I started a second channel dealing with Zen and Zard because I've been playing that game for some time. I got really competitive, but also got really good at the game very quickly because I don't know, that game kind of struck a chord with me, so I decided to start a channel for it. I haven't uploaded a video on there ever since I took on like a couple sponsored videos, but I really want to get back to it because it is such an untapped market. And looking at how much Bandai is putting into that game, I know that game is going to be huge. It's, to me, that's already a guarantee. So making content for it right now, the content creators are all really fresh. We're talking about, this is the pioneering moment. Most of the biggest Zen and Zard, you like Zen and tubers, they only have about 1,000, less than 2,000 subs right now, and they are growing. They've only been growing for a couple months from the game launch, and I'm like, this, either jump on it right away or hold your peace when they move forward and when they grow super big, because they have this unbelievable potential. This is like a rare chance. Like I rarely look at a game and be like, oh, this is gonna be really, really good. I look at that game and I'm like, that is a game that has the potential for a community to be developed, and now is the time. They're so young, and the Bandai is dumping so much money into the promotion. So that's kind of like that's like the second thing I'm kind of working on right now. I only put like 3 videos on there. I'm like,
well, speaking of which, like, having help and kind of balancing your life out. You mentioned that your wife is also a producer for your channel. Has she had any actual formal education in that kind of background?
No, she does not. She's mainly into cosmetics for the most part, and she kind of learned it from the ground up, I would say, like from managing the camera when Nishi and Oscar were here. Before I figure out my current setup is like everything's straight to the computer now. I don't want to handle it otherwise, even whether I do a live stream or whether I do any sort of like live, like when I was still able to do like live dual recordings at the time. Now it's much harder because locals is not exactly a thing, and doing a live game requires people to interact in person. She would be the one managing most of that stuff, and then I would actually put everything straight into the computer now. Like, now that I've known what technology is available, being able to put everything straight into the computer without that annoying transfer step or annoying like cut, delete the useless footage, whether or not the footage is even useful, like skipping that entire step, I would say saved me about 30% of my time from the post-processing part of it. Because like I don't have to review dead footage anymore. I don't have to like remember which one was the good one, which one was the bad one. I won't accidentally delete the wrong one. Cutting all of those errors out, big saving.
And so, how did she come about? Started like helping out with your channel?
When I got my first job at the first game company I was at, it was around like, I don't know, it was like a couple months before I was about to get laid off, really. I'm like, I need something as a resume booster, and I need some help with the camera, because moving back and forth between the camera was very difficult. Eventually I bought a remote for my camera so I can turn on the recording a bit quicker. Little things like that. Quality of life changes definitely make it a lot easier and makes me more motivated to keep going. But eventually there are times where I need someone to actually inspect the scene, and that's when I kind of brought her on. I'm like, I need you to check audio and video for me, make sure everything's in focus. I've recorded a whole video that was out of focus before, and that was upsetting.
Really?
I recorded a whole video without audio once. That was upsetting. So
wow.
So when these things kind of came about, I'm like, I asked if she could help, and she jumped on board. So then she takes care of a lot of like nowadays within the last couple months, she started doing the editing for me for some simpler videos. And I really appreciate that, because that means I get to sleep. I get to sleep more, and she's really concerned about like my health, like overworking myself, because she knows how much I work, and now she gets to see it on a day-to-day basis, and she kind of gets like, holy crap, you're just like all work. She calls me a workaholic all the time, and I think she's right. And it's not just her. Even my parents call me a bit of a workaholic. Like, you're working yourself to death. And well, that's kind of part of the grind, I would say, that you do. It also kind of shows character in some sense, that you're willing to work so hard for something that at the time, like, I'm not making any money from the channel. I'm not
Yeah.
making anything from the channel at the time. So willing to put that many hours into something that was more or less just like a passion project kind of showed the dedication. Eventually they stopped ridiculing me for like, why are you still doing this YouTube thing? Like, I'm like, well, this YouTube thing kind of like covers a lot. Like, I still work full time because it's a good way to kind of advance my life forward without worrying about like income. I would say I was impacted the least from COVID for the most part. So that was fortunately because I have my job and I have the YouTube side, and her coming in really helped me out. I got more rest because of it, and she helps out dealing with all the any sort of giveaway shipping. She deals with it. She's the producer. She can handle most of the giveaway shipping stuff, and like a lot of the back end stuff that I used to have to like wonder and worry about that would delay my production. She would take care of it. So.
Yeah, and I'm completely on with you on that one. I can absolutely relate because my girlfriend myself, she was the one who designed my logo for my podcast. Took her about 4 days to do it because she's an artist herself, and I actually paid her. Like, I gave her money to actually do it for her because I really wanted her to work hard at it. And now she also helps kind of keep myself in line with reality nowadays, because sometimes like I work a lot myself because I work my full-time my career, and then I also work at a card shop as well, and then not to mention I'm juggling this podcast all the time, and I'm also a sports broadcaster as well, although COVID's kind of knocked that down a little bit. But when all this goes like full force, like, I'm a very busy man too, just kind of like yourself. So my girlfriend has been really good with me, helping kind of keep reality and keep my life balance in check, that I don't kind of drift away too much into my work, because I definitely myself will work as much as I can and possible, just kind of like help, like, bring the money in and whatnot. And she helps like keep me on a level head and keep my mental self in check, just because I can get carried away with work a lot. So I completely like understand how your wife would kind of keep you in balance and keep you in check, just as much as my girlfriend does the same for me. And I'm really thankful. I'm sure you're thankful that you have a woman at your side to be able to help you out.
And I mean, we've been together for like, I don't know, before we even got married, we were at least together for like 8 years.
Very nice.
Like, the entire 20s was like there. So it was like she was there for the entire, basically my entire 20s. So yeah, it was basically going to be her. I don't think there was anyone else. Like, we know each other too well at this point, and we're still with each other. We're not at each other's teeth all the time, so we're all good.
Yeah, as opposed to myself and my girlfriend, we ridicule each other like all the time, because that's just how our relationship is. She makes fun of me, I make fun of her. We always laugh at each other about it, and that's I'm glad that you at least that you're now your wife, as you've got to work it out with her, and you have a balance with her, and she kind of helps out as well, which is really good for you, in considering how busy like you've gotten juggling full-time job, the channel, and have wanted to play Yu-Gi-Oh as well on top of it, and your Twitch streams.
Yeah, I don't even have my Twitch streams anymore. Like, I want to stream. I have my stream account right now. Nowadays, whenever I go on Twitch, I lurk different channels. I think whoever that's you're listening, I'm like you think I don't look at your channels? Okay, I look at the guy. Okay, there's some dude with 300 viewers. It's either Distant Coder, it's either Cody, or it's I don't know who else is there that's like in the top. Sometimes it's Gabe. I look at Gabe sometimes, and like, and then I'm like, okay, well, every now and then I have my Prime sub, and I just drop it to one of them. It's easy. I'm like, I don't use my Prime sub. I rather give it to someone that I just happened to be watching. I felt entertained. You know what? Prime sub. I would give them a shout out as well if I'm watching, so I can pull maybe some of my viewers over, because I believe in actually growing not only just my channel, but I want to grow the community as well. And being put in a position where I can do some minimal growth, I do appreciate it. Like, Cody started his YouTube channel. Shinping Shu started his YouTube channel.
Yes.
Like, I really wanted them to get going, but the thing is, a lot of content creators, I'm not like gonna name names or anything, they have a specific formula they want. They want to use the name of the person that's famous and try to boost themselves. I kind of feel like I want to do the opposite. Like, they're doing it for exposure, so I get it. They still get something out of it, but I kind of want to put the focus back onto the guest, kind of like what you're doing here.
Yeah,
I want to make sure that they are the one that are getting something out of it. Like there's actually a trick to do it. There's a trick to actually get yourself to grow. And I tested it out before when I was growing, when I was like a small channel. I grew about 1,000 subscribers at the time from doing this one thing. It's a 2-part series. Part 1, put it on the big channel so you can grab the audience. Part 2, put it on the other guy's channel. And then it's an immediate spike. It's an immediate spike. The thing is, the person, like I did this with Galactic God. I'm not sure if you remember Galactic God.
I'm aware.
Galactic God was one of the OG YouTubers. I believe one of the first ones to hit 100K. And he doesn't even do it anymore. That's the crazy part. But he was such a nice guy. When I just started out, I proposed to him. This is how I kind of like. There are certain parts in YouTube, like, oh, your first 100 takes a while to actually get your first 100 subs. If you don't have good, if you're just doing constant posts but nothing really sparks, then it takes a while to get the first 100. Unless you get like a shared video, then you get the 100 pretty quickly. But then from 100 to 500, that seems like a grind. You see on Twitter every now and then someone celebrating, like, you know, oh, I got to my first 500 subs. It's a good milestone. In fact, like, I know some people that are like, she's only at 500, but like, no, this is a moment of celebration. Like, I remember my first 500. I felt really good about it. And like, they hit that milestone and they earned it. And whatever they did, they have to keep going to hit to the first 1,000. The first 500 to 1,000 is one heck of a grind. I would say it took forever for most people. But then because now you have the audience, the algorithm picks you up and throws you out a bit more. So the growth is faster. And 1,000 to 2,000 actually doesn't actually take that long. For some reason, everyone's 1,000, 2,000 experience actually doesn't take too long. It just happens. It's just one of your content is going to be picked up by someone and it's going to be pushed out, and then you're going to get your 1,000 within like a couple months after the first 1,000. That's what I've seen from most of the people that I've watched. And then, but what I did to skip a bunch of that was I did that 2-parter series with Galactic God. I gave him the one that I was saving for my own channel, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to give it to you. I think it's actually worth it, and I think I think I want people to see this more than I want this to be on my own channel. So I made it a 2-parter. I did the meta history, my top tier timeline. I covered the early 2002 to 2007 on his channel, and then I did the 2007 onwards back on my channel. And that's how I pulled a lot of subs for one. The thing is, I did the entire production and I just split the video in half and gave half of it to him and then half of it back to myself. And he was really appreciative because that was one of the, it gave him a ton of views for sure. Which is good because, you know, it's a give and take relationship whenever you do a collab with someone. And that one helped me boost up my channel where I got to bypass the 2,000, 3,000 sub mark very, very quickly. And there's just different strategies. Like, you have to collab with the right people, but then like, how do you build that trust is another thing. I have a lot of talk with Team APS's Paul. Have you talked with him before?
No, I have not talked to him yet. I'm aware of him, but
he is a genius. Like, hands down, he is a genius. Like, he and we clicked really early on. Like, when he was around 4,000 subs, that's when he noticed my channel. And he gave my channel a chance. So there were a lot of people that gave my channel a chance. So in that sense, I want to also give a lot of the newer people a chance as well. And that's kind of where I'm like, I see Cody making a new channel. I see Shun making a new channel. I can bring out their best qualities into a video and repoint it back to them. And like, I always do recommendations, like, oh, this is what you should watch from their channel. Because I to recommend someone, you have to know them, and that's kind of the thing I like to do. Whenever I see new channels kind of pop up, I do pay attention. I try to give myself a little bit of time because it's not just about growing like MST TV. It's about growing the entire Yu-Gi-Oh community at this point. Yeah, so that's kind of like my little side mission where I'm like, oh, I see someone else kind of starting out. It's kind of like Team Samurai X1. He started off building Triff up. And you know, he's evolved. He's got way more pull power. And you know, Triff, I love the guy. He's hilarious. He's got so much energy. Everyone thinks I have some beef with like a lot of people. I'm like, I really don't.
Well, it's good that you don't have a whole lot of beef. I mean, that's really good. But that just seems like what the theme of yourself is. It's just bringing everybody else up. You're not just bringing up YouTubers as well or whatnot, or people who are starting out. But Cody's got a great channel that he's starting up himself, just as example. But you're like, again, going back to earlier in the podcast, you were starting to bring up the community around like the British Columbia area as well, not just Vancouver, but a little bit in and around that you can hopefully get more regionals into as well, which is really important nowadays, because now we're seeing a lot more collaborations between YouTubers than ever before that I've ever seen in my life.
It's a really good thing.
It's
a really good thing.
It is. Absolutely, it is, and I kind of found that going back to what you said about getting your first like 500 subs or whatnot, is that like when I first started doing this podcast, like I would review whatever guests I would have on, but there wasn't a whole lot of like social media like collaboration that would go in between it. And then as I started doing a little bit more collaborations and talks with whoever my next guest was, then I started seeing more subs. Then I started getting more attention. I mean, it's one thing just to post all of your content out on social media, but like almost everybody does it. So you got to be another reason for you to click on that rather than just simply throwing it out there. And definitely the collaborations, and not just like bringing in big names, even though someone could totally accuse me of
bring
doing
in big names,
because
like, it's being able to actually pull in the big name is actually a big thing if you think about it. Like, why would they give you the time of day to do it? That's it's because they believe in the thing that you do. They probably watch the thing that you do, which is why I don't mind jumping in. I look at all these like I guess technically quote unquote smaller channels. I think these are people that are gonna grow really big. There's head-to-head battles. I watch them. I watched Crush Card, Pack. Who else is there? There's a ton of them, and I watch them, and I'm like, dude, even like DB Grinder. He just goes does DB videos all the time, and I'm like, these are guys that know what they're doing. They have like solid potential to move forward, and I know that they'll as long as they're willing to keep going and grind it out. No pun intended. They will make something out of it. So it's I like being at one point in their position. Like, I didn't grow from like 1 to 30K subs from like a shout out or anything. I wasn't like viral. I wasn't brought up through like a viral post or anything. Like, being able to work through every step of the way, you can kind of see who's actually got what it takes, and you can see like their growth too. Like, if I watch back my very first video, oh my god, I would cringe so hard. I can't watch that video. I just can't. It's so hard. I was so stiff. It's like I gotta stick up my butt or something. I don't know. I couldn't talk. I was like stiff. Like, we were like super serious. I look like crappy. Like, if at school there's always that one bad teacher, that one bad instructor that just was like down to business all the time, but it was like there was no energy in those kinds of videos. And I look back and I'm like, I can't watch this. I can't do it. This is awful. That'll be another reaction video one day when I have to watch my very first video. Oh my god, I can't do it. The thing is, that's how my wife teases me sometimes. And the fact, it's not just my wife. I visited a friend in Toronto once, and they put my first video on TV.
Oh,
and I was like, turn it off. Just turn it off. Oh my god, stop. That was one day someone's gonna do that to you.
Yeah, I can believe it, because I did YugiTube about a year ago, and then I stopped for a while, and like when I looked back at those videos, I'm like, I'm just talking in front of a camera. That's it. That's all I'm doing. It's just really lame. Why would anybody want to like pay more attention to me? And oh my god! And then now, like, I revamped my channel now too. It's just simply being a podcast. And maybe if I give myself a little more time, maybe I'll do a couple more things down the road. But just a podcast for now, because that is quite well suited to like my journalism skills at the moment. And then maybe if I get a little bit more bigger and bigger, I can start putting a little bit more time and effort into my YouTube channel. But for now, this is a pretty good balance of what I have. Again, I also have balance is a big thing, because I also
and to anyone that's starting off their own channel, finding your balance, what you're willing to commit, and how much you're willing to kind of sacrifice for it, it is a very big step into getting it started. Yeah.
And it really is, because again, like, especially when you have a girlfriend, you have like several jobs or like a full-time job, and then you have like your other hobbies as well, because I assume that yourself that you have more hobbies than just doing Yu-Gi-Oh. Like food, for example, would be another one of them. And as for myself, I love playing sports as well. I just took up golf like several months ago as an example, and like, oh, I like to watch a lot of sports on TV as well and play a bunch of video games. Everyone's got to find that balance in between, which is what a thing I loved about your channel is how you kind of promote it, how you get it out there. And I know that much to my own dismay, that it took a little bit of time to be able to get you onto this podcast for this week's episode, and thank God we finally got onto it. But having to juggle all around that, it gets really troublesome at one point in time. And you said you felt burnt out a couple times. I've definitely I've gotten to that point like in my life at one point in time. So like definitely finding that balance there, I find, is so important, with not just yourself, but for everyone around you that cares for you and everything like that. So it's really good that you can help encourage that as well, but still do pursue something that you love.
Self-care is important.
Yes. And I've talked about that with so many different guests on this podcast, more about self-care, especially like eating during a big event when you're playing is so key, and it could be like the biggest difference in you making a misplay or the right move to get yourself to the next round as well. So yeah, definitely self-care
is, and I can definitely attest to that. I remember, don't be the guy that eats like a milk and cheese burrito before you play. But distraction is realistic. I've seen people, okay, I don't know why the two YCSs that I've judged at, I've had one guy, at least one guy, that forfeits the match because he needs to go to the bathroom. I was like, my opponent just left. I'm like, why? Why did he leave? He needed the bathroom. I'm like, he could tell a judge and we can hold the match for a reasonable amount of time, because it's it's human nature to need the bathroom. It's not like you're like handcuffed to the table. You can't leave the table. And I did a video specifically about this, where like people just the term was poop, scoop to poop. I'm like, what? No. You and then I learned that you can go to the bathroom. You just have to tell a judge, and they will if there is a judge that's available, they might, I know at the top tables, they recommend all players to go to the bathroom between rounds, and you have to escort them. I've escorted people to the bathroom about this. And the thing is, if there are judges available, they will escort you, or they'll watch over your stuff while you're gone. That's the thing. I'm like, so you can go to the bathroom. We're not inhumane.
Yeah. And I know that we want to get the tournament going as fast as possible, because these regionals or YCs are so long. But yeah, there's such thing as a time extension. We can award it to you if it needs. So that's a very common thing that judges give to a lot of players, are time extensions, whether it be from a deck check or an emergency or something like that. They happen. And a lot of people just don't seem to remember or understand that we're not horrible human beings. We will give you time extensions or accommodate you in some way, shape, or form, because we're all human. We're all prone to human things that happen.
It's just that was just a bit surprising to me. Yeah, but what you eat does matter. So make sure you guys take care of yourself when you go to events. And I feel really bad for the driver. The driver always gets it the worst, because they're the one that just go to the event 100% tired the entire time. Driving for 3 hours to go to an event, driving for 7 hours. I guess when I went to Portland, I drove because there was a traffic accident. I drove for 9 hours to get down there. I was already exhausted. I didn't have time to I didn't even have any play testing time or anything. I was just tired, and it really affects your performance. So being well rested does matter. I'm not much more I can really say about that subject.
Yeah, I feel you, because I used to not be the driver for the first half of my life when I played Yu-Gi-Oh. Now I've become the driver, and now I have to be the one to to have to go through that endurance to just kind of tough through everything and whatnot. Thankfully, I'd like to believe that I'm very mentally tough myself, so I can handle it. But yeah, God bless everyone who's driven to all these events because they have it the toughest for sure because because some people need to focus on the road, like some people need to like maybe not talk with somebody just to keep themselves
There's
sane
always
as they
who's
drive.
shotgun. The person that's gonna stay awake is on shotgun. That is every time.
Yes.
Because I remember I was driving. Okay, there's two driving, I guess, not really incidents that I had. Okay, there's one time I was driving. It was just Oscar and I. We're going down to Seattle, and he was going for his regional. Funny enough, both of us topped that one. That was funny, but like when I was driving, he freaked out completely. I fell asleep at the wheel.
Oh my gosh!
So we were on the I-5 going up. And I fell asleep. It was and then we were hitting the. We didn't hit anything, but like you know how like on the freeway, there's like the road bump when you're getting close to like the divider. So I rolled onto that. It's like Thomas, like oh.
Yeah.
So then
it makes that like really well, like that rigid part of the road where like if you run over it,
so that's when I woke up
sound
and
to
we were
warn you.
Okay.
Okay.
So I got really lucky on that one because. We had to wake up. I had to wake up at like 5 to drive down, and it was the road on the trip back that I was super tired. So that's when we pulled up to a gas station, bought like a Red Bull or something, and then I went back on the road. That was the freaky time. That was freaky. And then the other incident. This was funny. This annoyed me more than anything because I was super tired. The other incident was I drove all the way to the border. Only for him to not have his passport. And then I turned the car around to get his passport, to come back to the border again, and then we went down. I'm like, damn, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna make it there. We're gonna have like 2 hours to play test. Nope, that was out the window. We got there, we just played right away.
I mean, it's easy to say this, but like I always. That's like the first question I always ask everybody when everyone's in the car. It's like, does everybody have their passport? That's like the very first thing I ask once we're all something. Like, please have your passport. I do not want to turn around. Thankfully, I haven't had any of that kind of situations. I was close once, but oh god, like I can only imagine like the stress and like your insanity levels going up.
Yeah, there was that. I think there was another funny car incident. This one was oh my god, this is a story. Okay, this was YCS Portland, and we were driving down. I was driving down. I was the driver. Problem was, I drank 2 Red Bulls before I started going down. And we were in the car, and we're at the border. There's a huge wait. I needed the bathroom so bad. Like, I needed to... Yeah. I needed to pee. And I'm like, guys, I have a problem. I really need the bathroom. It is really slow right now. And then... There's like 5, like including my wife. Like including my wife, there was like 3 guys in the back, and I'm like, guys, shut up, please, shut up. I need to focus. and then like I'm like, do you guys have any solutions? Like, if we okay, I'm at because we're in line at the border, we're waiting, and I'm like, yeah, I really need to pee, guys. And then they're like.
No.
So what can we do? Like, do you want to open the door? I'm like, just go on the side of the line. I'm like, this is gonna be super awkward. Oh my god, no, I can't. This is like, caffeine just makes you want to it's harder to hold when it's caffeine.
Yeah, because it's supposed to act like I forget the word offhand, but it's supposed to make you want to go.
So in my mind, I was running all the different scenarios. And one of the scenarios, so I found a bottle of water. I'm like, oh my god, this bottle of water is full. So I started drinking the bottle of water. I'm like, they're like, why are you drinking the bottle of water? So then they started like, I passed it on. So they finished the bottle. They like just chugged the bottle of water. Because it would look awkward if we poured water out of the window because we're already at the border. There's cameras everywhere. So whatever, a chemical attack or something. So like we chugged the water down, and I'm like, I need to hold this in. I basically like loosened my seatbelt. My seatbelt's basically not on at this point. Like everything to relieve pressure. I have undone my belt and everything. I've like unbuttoned my jeans, and I'm like, everything to relieve pressure. And I'm like, oh my god, it's moving. It's moving. This is awkward. Dude, hold on, guys. There's only 1 car left. it would be really awkward if by the time I drove up to the border and I would be holding a bottle of pee in my I thought, I was like, so if they do that, would we actually get taken inside?
Oh my god, I don't
I'm
even know
like,
where to begin with that.
what's that in your hand? It's my pee.
It's my pee. I'm sorry.
I'm
I
like,
really couldn't hold
basically
it.
at that point I was like zero shame. I'm like, so I didn't need to pee into the bottle, luckily, because I know the border very well. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
that car moved in really fast, so we got to go right away.
Yeah.
And then I knew, like, basically, don't say anything unnecessary. Just get past the border. Like, oh, where are you guys going? We're going to a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. Where is it? Down in Portland. Where are you guys planning to stay? Here's the address, because we booked an Airbnb. And how many staying for?
Yep.
3 days. And yeah, and she's the border guard started to like small talk. And I'm like, oh, so yeah, we've got a couple of cars going down like that too.
Oh,
I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty big tournament. Oh, and then she's like, okay, you guys have fun. Gave us back, and I just like zoomed out of there. And I know because like I've crossed the border so many times, I know there's like a gas station right on the first exit. So I'm like, yeah, typically,
yes,
like I'm
typically
like,
is.
I'm going there. And when I got there to like the gas station, someone else was in the bathroom. And I was like, no, this is not right. This is not right. So then luckily it was like a Burger King next to the gas station. I was like holding my crotch the entire time when I walked through that Burger King. Asked them to buzz open the washroom door. And then I was just like, okay, finally I'm relieved. And then I apologize to everyone in that car for the awkward situation I put them in. That was the car incident. So in other words, guys, use the bathroom before you go into the car.
Yeah, definitely that, because for myself, when I travel across the border, we always stop at the duty free, which is like the shop before you hit the border that allows you to like transport whatever goods that you'd like, certain amount of goods, like alcohol, cigarettes. Yeah. So I always make that stop before we go to the border to prevent that. And plus, not to mention, like if we want to drink in the hotel, we can get a little bit of like cheaper alcohol without having to pay tax before we get into it. Like maybe after like a rough night or something like that, or whatnot. Because usually I'd say like 3 days. I'd say until like the Monday. So maybe on like a Sunday night I would drink, and then like Monday go back and a little bit more refreshed. But yeah, like, oh my god, that's quite a dilly of a story there, and I try to keep myself as prepped as possible, but I hope I never have that same situation.
That's my life lesson. Let Tombox have that life lesson. You guys don't have to go through with it. It's kind of awkward. I'm like, I'm ready to just like pee in the car. Like that was my most awkward moment traveling to an event. 100%. I think there's nothing more cringy. There's nothing that can be done.
Well, I'm very glad you at least share that story, because I found that quite to be entertaining, and I was trying to hold back, like kind of laughing really loud about it. I was like chortling hard, and my cheeks hurt right now, just because like I had to laugh a whole bunch yesterday because I was with my girlfriend's family for her mother's birthday, and we were just laughing throughout all the night. There was some alcohol involved too, but that's what happened. And then like my cheeks still hurt a little bit, and you're not making it any easier myself on my face right now, because it's hurting right now, but it's in a good way. It's all for the sake of entertainment.
Yeah, that's gonna be the travel story. That if I ever have one, that's the one.
Mm-hmm. And definitely really entertaining. Again, sorry, my cheeks hurt badly. I need to massage it. That feels better. So what's next for your YouTube channel now that you've gotten so many subscribers at this point in time, and you have like a really good following and good reputation?
I guess I'm trying to hit 100K. I'm always working towards that silver plaque. Hopefully I can get there. Right now, believe it or not, like there's always that giveaway campaign for till the end of the year. That one of course was more or less controversial at the very least. I think some people are still kind of angry, but most of it's kind of been blown over. I guess I got mini canceled for a little bit. But yeah, I actually understand how it feels to get that much hate directed towards you. It doesn't feel very good. As much as like people want to know, like, oh, it didn't barely even affect it. He's not apologetic. I'm like, you know what? I did things with the wrong intentions. Like not wrong intent. Did it with the right intentions, with the wrong execution. is what kind of came out about it. So then, you know what? Just to write everything, let's just take away anything that is affiliated with that with the whole thing and just move it forward. Inzectors, like I thought, like people were supposed to influence based off of what they want. Like if people lose, they're supposed to go into like join a camp or like join whatever things that they are. Either they don't care or they are going to join another faction because they have another archetype that they like. That's kind of like the notion that I kind of started with. So then I'm like, yeah, well, people just join. We'll see if we can push Inzector. Inzector wasn't even my first choice, to be honest. I wanted Mermail so bad. Mermail was actually my first choice, but I'm like, Mermail doesn't really need anything. Let's be honest here. Mermail isn't like, they're not even bad. They're actually a fun rogue. Like there might be rogue tier now, but yeah, at one point they were tier 1 because they were such a strong deck, and like even now they can still play. They can rip people's hands completely apart, and it's like not much people can do about it. So I'm like, Mermail don't really need anything, even though it's my favorite archetype. The reason why it's my favorite archetype is because that was a tier 1 deck that my brother got for me.
Oh yeah, and Megalos.
He picked up 2 Megalos for me. That's why I have a really strong like favoritism towards Mermails. Inzectors was my best friend's deck, but he stopped playing. He really liked Inzectors. He liked the whole popping field mechanic, but like what people don't realize is back in 2012, like Inzector popping your whole board means that you already did something wrong. You let them pop your whole board. I've watched the World Championships, and the World Championship between Inzector versus Inzector was that the whole game was not letting your opponent pop your entire board. That was the entire game.
Yes.
Like, oh, you summon your monster, I'm gonna torrential your whole board. You summon your monster, I'm gonna veil your monster. You can't pop boards. The whole point was not to let your opponent pop boards. No one did full combo. There was no mention of full combo. And when some full combo happened, it happened like maybe like 6-7 turns later, right when the resources were burnt out and they did not have an answer left. That's when the full combo happened. I'm like, that's Inzectors. Like, that's why it was so fun. Like, people, oh man, you're just gonna machine gun down my entire board. That's not exactly how it is. And if you compare with the combos of these days, I mean, like back in the day, it was 2 hand traps, DD Crow and Effect Veiler. Those are the two. One to get rid of the Hornet, and the other one to make sure that your Hornet falls off. So it was like those two. But nowadays, you got Ghost Ogre, and since this isn't equip based, Ogre is effective. Gamma, Veiler, Imperm. It's like everything can stop your combo. And the deck relied on the normal summon. I'm like, do you know how crippling this is compared to BA? BA's old normal summon was like 1 tour guide, but now they can be like spam out their entire hand. They've got Fiendish Rhino. They have extenders. Inzectors don't have any extenders to actually bring them there. That's what people didn't really understand. I'm like, yeah, Inzectors, you know what? If they actually had 1 extender, some level of protection, they can play. That's where I thought, like, you know what? They are the ones that are probably going to get it. And then they were my third choice of all of them. My second choice, I can't remember what was in the whole list there. It was not. My second choice was actually x-sabers. I wanted x-sabers because that was Oscar's favorite deck, and Oscar said if x-sabers got a new card, he would come back. So when it was x-sabers versus photons, I was like, oh man, I really wish x-sabers. And photons are, you know, people don't understand is photons was my 4th choice. So I'm like, you know what? 3 of my choices actually made it. So I'm like, whatever. Either way, I'm gonna get something, no matter how they think. Like, I hate like Dino Mist. Like, I hate all these other archetypes. Like, I don't.
I feel like if x-sabers did come back, there'd be like a huge Fultrol like discard loop, and it would be crazy. Even though there's already one that exists, but I think it'd be more consistent if we had like more x-sabers.
I'm not sure if they're gonna
like that.
I'm not sure if they're gonna let us get that Fultrol loop back, because Fultrol is pretty. It is like a full loop. It's an endless loop. It can loop out like a 20 card hand. Doesn't matter. It's the same play over and over again. So I don't think that would happen. It'd be interesting to see. Like, then again, it would probably be like the execution would be very difficult to get to. That's the whole point. Like, it's kind of like Inzectors, like their whole board popping thing. If they got to it, they deserve to win because that was their win con. Just like how the x-saber win con would be to like full loop you. But then like x-sabers had way more things after that full loop. They have Hunlay to pop up your back rows. They had everything. It was just a difficult. It was just a different time, and it would be weird to see it happen in 2020, 2011. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, I agree with you on the Inzektor part, because I was playing in YCS Philly in 2012, and I went X2 that event. Didn't top. I was 34th out of 32, which sucked. But the two matches that I did lose, it was because I couldn't fire off an Inzektor Hornet. I could not fire it off for the life of me. Like, my opponents were good enough to not let me have it, or I just didn't have it. But most of the time it was my opponents would not allow me to have it. And then I played one Inzektor mirror match where the only time I would let my opponent have it is if everything on my field had like a purpose to be destroyed, or it was a floater. Like, I had a Sangan set, or I'd have a safe zone set, and then when they try to pop the safe zone, I'd just equip it to their Inzektor, and then they would get popped, for example. So yeah, I agree that if you get off an Inzektor effect, you deserve to win, because that was the whole point of what Inzektor was
incredibly hard when you're playing a competitive match and trying to get the thing out. So that's kind of why, like, Inzektor was my third choice, Photon was fourth choice. Either way, people were kind of like, oh man, I hope your archetype loses. Well, I don't think it's actually going to lose, because like it could have been any of the archetypes that I liked. It could have been x-sabers. Like, honestly, like, I thought that people were supposed to like campaign for something at one point, because like, you know, you're voting for something. Let's just try to campaign for something. Yeah. So I went for the whole campaign. I did like celebratory giveaways for it. So then eventually the celebratory giveaways were just allowed for everyone. Like, in fact, they were supposed to be allowed for everyone anyway at the end, because that's why I didn't host them during the time. I hosted it after the entire event ended. So that people can join. And I was being really sarcastic. I was kind of like copying the behavior of like people that were really energetic, but then that sarcasm didn't come off right, and people got pretty angry about it. But then again, the giveaways for everyone. I'm like, I don't care whether you criticize me during that time or not. The giveaway is still allowed for everyone. So I've got giveaways basically happening until the end of the year now. And this is something that I haven't done in a very long time. I don't typically like doing giveaways, because what I've noticed is that if you put giveaways in videos, it just kind of takes away from the video itself. Funny thing is, my triple droplets giveaway is actually live. People just don't know that it's live, except for the people that have watched the recent video. And like, I know for a fact that no one's gonna share that video. For like, from what I know, like according to my current like my giveaway platform, there's only about 1 in 400 chance that you would win a set of imperms. 1 in 400. That is so low.
Yeah, it really is. For a
that's
giveaway?
Like, your odds are actually ridiculous right now. Like, the imperm one, I already did the imperm one. The imperm one was already done. Now we're doing the triple droplets, and then we're gonna go into the boxes afterwards. Like, that thing is like, it's just meant to celebrate, you know, the round after round. But of course, the execution was poor, and well, whatever it is what it is now. I'm just gonna let it get behind me. I'm gonna honor my word, because I already put it out there. When like Inzektors lost to like Valkyries in the bot round, I was like, whatever, we're still gonna do this giveaway. That thing, like, we're still gonna do the full case giveaway thing. That was posted. Like, when I said the defeat was there, I was like, oh, at 69K sub, we're doing a full case giveaway. Like, that was already there. And then the campaign restarted because of the whole, you know, Twitter bot thing. And I'm like, you know what? I guess I'll just restart the campaign that I did before. No one was actually upset about it for the longest time. No one cared. It was until Dino Mist lost. That's when they cared.
Do you mind like going from the ground level up on like where this whole thing kind of started, just for people who don't understand what's being talked about?
They had the whole create a card campaign. Like, I kind of didn't really get too vocal about it, but they had a create a card campaign, and I'm like, I just so happened like, mermails, no. I chose like Inzektors because, you know, it was one of my best friend's archetype, and I didn't really promote Inzektors until like much. I didn't even bother promoting x-sabers, because they were. Oscar was the one that said he was going to play it, but he only said that like by the time they were in the semifinals, so that was kind of like too late. Otherwise, I probably would have went with campaigning for the x-sabers. That's what I would have done. And then people would have been angry about x-sabers because of my execution. But my execution was pretty poor. People were saying, oh, you're bribing people for votes. But they were like, no real rules or anything for like campaigning or not. They didn't tell us not to campaign. So I did campaign, but then my campaign was like too I guess the prizes were too elusive to the point that it might have taken away from the contest itself. That's probably one of the bigger parts. And then whoever that loses are obviously going to feel salty that maybe it contributed to this situation, because I offered like, oh, every single time Inzector moves forward in a round, I would do like I would enable or allow another giveaway. I'll celebrate with another giveaway. So basically I stacked onto it, but people thought that kind of took away from it because the prizes were too big. The first prize was like nothing. Like Valkyrie round, there was nothing. I was like, Valkyrie round, if we win, we will do this thing. So, but then we actually did win the Valkyrie round. But originally, when we were still doing the Twitter thing, we lost. So what happened when we lost was I put it on like one of my YouTube posts. It said that, okay, at 69, 69, 69, we will do our giveaway of the entire case that we mentioned in this campaign. But then Konami reset the whole thing because of Twitter bots, and they started using their own survey research website, whatever it was. And then I'm like, you know what? I can't really back out of my own word because, you know, I don't know, it makes me look kind of cheap. So I'm like, you know, the campaign's live again. If we beat Valkyrie, we will do our campaign, the giveaway celebratory campaign. So round 1 was to enable it. Round 2 was to push forward the cards. Round like place out of imperm because imperms are just so sought after. The reason why I chose imperm of all cards because I thought imperms were kind of cheap, to be honest. Like I looked at the prices, like imperms when the dual power came out, imperm prices were like 20, 30. And now they're back to like 40
like crazy.
And 40, 45. And I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was just doing like a $60 giveaway. Like, who cares? Like $60, like whatever. I didn't realize that I was throwing away close to like $100 at the time. And then droplets. Droplets was like, originally it was just one droplet. I was like, I'll give away one drop because I pulled one droplet out of my box and was like, whatever. I don't need the this extra one that I have because I already pre-ordered a set. And I'm like, you know what? I'll give away a droplet. And then eventually I changed it. You know what? What's the point of having one droplet? You're never going to use one droplet. So I changed it. I just changed it to, you know, I'll just give away 3 droplets. Because I picked my setup for cheap and someone else can have a playset. Maybe that's all they need to play competitively. So that's when I'll do a playset drop. Someone's going to be really happy about it. By the way, the triple droplet one is still live. They just have to find a bit. Yep. I specifically chose to like cater towards people who are subscribers. Like, and I'm going to put it inside videos. I'm not going to put it in the thumbnail. I'm not going to put anything. They just have to choose to watch a video just so happen to watch a video and they'll catch it. That's the point of the like these giveaways. They're for the subscribers to celebrate the people that have joined on to, you know, this whole thing. And then so that was for the round. If they won, like whatever, we'll continue. If they don't win, well, whatever, the giveaway's over. We'll just move forward with the available giveaways that I said we're gonna do. So that's kind of where it was at. But then people saw it like, oh, he's buying people's votes with droplets. Well, no one's really gotten anything. I didn't pay for anything, for instance, and people were getting really upset about it. So I was like, oh, I guess how people interpret it is like their own thing. Like I can't really choose how people choose to interpret it. So that's how the whole, you know, cancel me started thing happening. And then I'm like, you know, I'm just gonna continue this campaign thing, you know, and like to kind of quell the crowd or like calm the crowd down, I just had to, you know, it's like screw it. The giveaway just for everyone. It's happening regardless. I don't care if it's related to the campaign anymore. But by that time, people were like, oh, it's already too late. Like it's already like it made Dynamis lose or whatever. And I'm like, the thing is, what I've realized is that there was a game plan to actually allow certain archetypes to it kind of took me a while to figure it out, but there was a game plan to allow certain things to win. It's not, I just realized Lightsworn was going to be the #1 favorite. A lot of people said that Lightsworn was going to be the #1 favorite for the
yes,
that was like, but then they lost in round 1. There was a reason for that because people campaigned against it. There was a lot of anti-Lightsworn Facebook groups and whatnot. They all kind of popped up and they just really pushed the vote down. Like, because if Lightsworn moves forward, because Lightsworn has the best fan base, they do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of support.
They're one of the most timeless archetypes of the set. And Team Samurai X1 was also the one that was going for that one. He was He was back. I asked him like, "Hey Sam, you want to help me promote Insectors?" He's like, "No man, I'm all light sworn," and I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. Maybe I'll see you in the competition."
Yeah.
And like everyone had their own different ones. Like Triff was backing Pendulums. I
Pendulums.
forgot who was
Yes,
backing
of
Frogs.
course.
I know Rata was rank 10 trains. He was backing Insectors as well. I don't know who else was on the other campaigns, but I know that a lot of the different tubers, like a lot of them were doing shout outs, and no one was like doing like a full on camp, like a celebratory victory campaign. But they said, but all in all, so because I went out of my way and decided to put like giveaways into it, people got really upset. But then what kind of came out of it for me was that I realized that if they really liked their archetype, they were going to vote for it anyway. That's what it came out to. Because when I was talking with these people that were voting against Insectors, they were saying, "Oh, we weren't going to vote for you anyway." So so like what? So like whatever. I'm like, okay. So in other words, this campaign didn't actually have very much of an influence on anything. It just it mostly gave people an excuse to kind of get angry, and I kind of feel bad for giving them that excuse for doing so. That was my poor execution, so I probably won't do anything like this in the future. But then the game plan that would allow a specific archetype to win was to give them the illusion that their archetype was doing better than it was, because we know that the Insector voters, I talked about this with my Discord at one point. I'm like, the only way for Insectors to win is that all the Insectors voters, they vote every round, and we vote in favor of the matchup that we don't like. We vote in favor of the matchup that is easier to win against. So then we would push all the Insector votes into each of the other ones that we didn't want to. Like during the Dino Mist round, Dino Mist versus Lightsworn, I voted for Dino Mist because I'm like, there's no way we can beat Lightsworn.
I did not want to. Yeah, I voted for Dynamist.
Yeah, so everyone kind of just flooded it in. So it gave like the various archetypes an illusion that they had more than they actually did. And that's what I mean. Like this whole thing can actually be manipulated by a specific archetype that wanted to win. And that's what I realized. Like as long as their fan base, as long as they're like organized enough that they can like push all of the support from one and then give them the false sense of security that they have that many votes, and then all of a sudden like pull back from it. That's when you get the upset. Well, that's when I realized, hey, people can vote for every round. I know some people that didn't care, they didn't bother, but some people were much more vocal about like getting the other archetypes to win. I know at one point on Twitter, I was like, vote for this other archetype.
So to put my 2 cents in all of this, we kind of see like examples of this happen a lot in life. Like I know like some people might anticipate it as like you trying to bribe for votes, but some people see it, and this is how I saw it. I saw it as a bonus in a sense. Like for example, I'm a big fan of the Los Angeles Kings hockey team, and they have something called the McFlurry minute, like from McDonald's, is where if they score a goal in like the last minute of a period, like the whole entire crowd gets a free McFlurry, for example. It's kind of like an incentive for you to cheer on the LA Kings while they're playing at home. It's kind of like that. I see it as a bonus. Like I would still cheer for them anyway, as opposed to if I saw my vote against Light Swans and Insectors, and I said, okay, I'm going to vote Insectors because I like Insectors more. And if you put that contest out there for the vote for Insectors, I anticipate that as that's just an added bonus. Because I just want I want my vote for that.
The thing
is how
I kind of criticizing myself now is that because this was chosen by the crowd rather than chosen by a factor that was basically it was chosen by a factor where the public was the one that got the control. That's where it was like, that's where I kind of like, you know what, it does seem kind of like that's why eventually like the apology kind of came up for me, like, yeah, you know what, this is I guess there might have been some influence, but from what I've heard or from what I've talked about from these people, the people that criticize me, like I understand their viewpoint. I had to understand their viewpoint at first because I'm like, this is just campaigning. People spend like millions campaigning, on their elections and whatnot, and how like when they win, they celebrate with like various things. I always thought about it like it was like, I always compared it to the the sports bar. the sports bar. Like if this team wins, there's a round of free beer around the house, on the house. That's what I kind of thought I was doing. So that was the intention, but the execution, had like different eyes and different ways to interpret it, which is kind of what led to what it was. But I bet a lot of people want to hear about this situation, but I didn't talk about it very much because I was like, you know what, never fuel the flame of trolls and people that are angry. So I didn't really want to bother. And besides, the giveaway campaign is still live. I don't care if they criticize me. I don't care if they're going to be hypocritical, whether they criticize me and they're still joining the giveaway. That's all fine. Like the point is that I'm stuck honoring my word regardless. Like I'm not going to back out of it. Like there was no way that they could get me back out. Like I'm not going to host the giveaway. That's actually way worse. That kind of PR is way worse.
Yes.
So the giveaways are still going to happen, and basically they're happening till the end of the year. There's like so many giveaways happening. It is unbelievable. Even like the sponsored stuff that are coming through, like so many things. Like I mean the Zexel medal and everything, like the Duel Links medal, the thing that I don't know who actually has them. I have them. Team Samurai X one has them. He's also doing a giveaway for his chunk of medals, like the coin. Have you seen them?
No, I haven't seen the coin yet. No, not at all. I've seen like
the coin is a very big one. I just completed my giveaway for that. I'm just trying to collect information to give them out. But yeah, basically that campaign is basically done. But like I have a ton of like random stuff to give away. And like the thing about giveaway, to kind of sidestep to like the overall look on giveaways and stuff is that they are 100%. How do I put it? They don't really boost the channel, if anything. It's just a fact. From all the giveaways that I have done, there have been more times where I would actually lose subscribers doing giveaways than actually gain. Yeah, it's a fact. From my channel anyway. I think to some degree, Team APS and even Team Samurai X1 would agree with that fact. I've talked with them. I talked with them about this before. Is that it doesn't really create genuine interest in the channel. It kind of turns your channel into a bit of a lottery. And if the feeling of losing is way worse than someone like it doesn't, the amount of people losing in the giveaway is more than that one winner. And that causes people to unsubscribe.
Yeah, because like some people are just tuning into your channel simply for just the giveaway, and that's it. They're not going to look through your content. They're just going to like sift through like one video, whatnot, find out how to enter, and then just leave. It's not genuine in
that sense. And when they realize that they did not win, that feeling of losing it sticks with them, and that's why I'm not really too fond of doing giveaways. And when I'm doing like any sort of raffle or any sort of sweepstake, it's bonus. It's just bonus, and that's why it's mainly just to reward the subscribers. I started adding code words in the video, so they actually have to watch through the whole thing to find it. To kind of let them be qualified for it. It's just because it's mainly about the video. If you're gonna watch the video anyway, these code word things, they're just gonna pop into you right away. It doesn't really matter. But if and if you're only there to like hunt for giveaways, well, it's a little mini filtration system, I would say, for me.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of radio giveaways that do that. There's like, this is the code word, call in at this specific time when you hear the code word. Like I see that all the time too, and this isn't anything new that's happening out there. Not at all. This is common and a normal thing.
Yeah,
these are all just bonuses,
and that's kind of what I want to get into. It's like, but right now for the channel now has I would say there's giveaways basically happening all the way to Christmas. So I'm like, oh boy. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work out. I really hope it ends up well. If not, it'll be another lesson to learn about how to handle these kinds of situations. That's my thought anyway on this situation.
Yeah. Well, I hope it all works out for you. And like, I didn't think anything less of you when I saw all of this kind of unfold, because I took it as a bonus rather than like a bribe, because I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote anyway, regardless of like how you sway and how everyone else sways. But again, like if it so happens that we both agree on the same archetype, then awesome. If not, not a big deal.
I'm like, anyone that supported Photons, good for them. It was a tight run, actually. That was actually a lot. Like That was a lot of votes. Whether like it doesn't matter where their intention comes from when they vote, whether they care about the archetypes winning or not, whether they want Insectors to lose. These are all possible angles that you could have voted from, and whatever. It's just you guys, you do you, and it's your vote. You do whatever you want with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be criticism in some way, shape, or form that it happens. So it doesn't really matter too much. Like, just go out and do it anyway. Like, eventually, like, you're going to be criticized in one way, shape, or form. Like, there's always going to be someone that might like downvote your video, and then you might get like 100 times as much on upvotes. So those things are just bound to happen. It's just, yeah, that's fair. It's just keep pushing on, and I'm sure that there's been a lot of criticism on other YouTubers as well. And I'm sure eventually, if I keep this up, I might get something. I've already had people who told me that, like, I'm not the biggest fan of this episode or this episode. This happens. You're not going to cater to everybody, and it's just being able to move past that is definitely the big thing that you have to do. At this point in time.
Like, when you get that kind of hate towards you, there is a level of energy that it drains from you, getting through it is just another part of something I learned to do now.
Yeah, I would hope so, because it's, if you go big, like, eventually you're gonna have haters. But I've had that line before from other people say, like, if you have haters, that means you're doing a good job because you're getting noticed enough. But that's how it is. It's all part of it, and it's all about just being able to move past it. All right, Thomas, man, it was a pleasure being able to talk to you for the first time. This is actually our first real conversation that we had with each other. So
thanks for having me
onto the podcast. I really appreciate you. Absolutely, man. Any shout outs you want to give before we go?
Yeah, I guess I'll give a shout out to Paul from Team APS. Surprisingly, he's actually one of the early motivators for me to even start the channel. There's about 5 people that started me to motivate the channel. One is Paul from Team APS. Asian Eyes White Dragon was one of them too, because he was one that kind of opened my eyes, like, oh, I can do this kind of stuff. Well, I guess shout out to my wife, my brother, my family. Well, so I get a shout out to. There's a couple of smaller channels I kind of want to give a shout out to, just to kind of put their name out there. Head to Head Battles, Crush Card. These are guys that deserve. Check out the Shun Ping and these guys, because I managed to book their time and got them to do a video with me, and they are some of the growing people out there. And a shout out to you too. I like doing this podcast. This was very refreshing for me.
That's good. I'm glad you appreciate it. And everyone who's been on here so far has really enjoyed it. I know you may have sounded a little bit skeptical at first, but I'm glad you got yourself settled in and you started to enjoy it a little bit more and more as we kind of went along with this.
Hopefully there's no haters that come after me after this.
All right.
Reveal too many secrets.
Let us hope not, my friend. All right. That is Thomas Cheung, a.k.a. Tombox, who is part of MST.TV on YouTube. All the links will be below for his Twitch, his YouTube, and his Patreon. And he has over 63,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thomas, thanks again so much.
Thanks for having me. I hope you guys have a good day.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. For more information, check out the Gate Expectations podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Patreon, Twitter, and Spotify.